Welcome to the Nightlife Podcast. Have you ever dismissed a dream as just the pizza or stress from the day? More often than we realize, the symbols and stories in our dreams contain divine revelation, hidden for us to discover. Once you realize this gift that's been yours all along, you'll never go back to spending the nightlife just sleeping. Whether your Christmas looks like palm trees wrapped in lights, as it does for my guest on the podcast today, or pine trees dusted in snow, which is my view here in the mountains, I pray for each of us to experience the warmth and wonder of Jesus in new and meaningful ways this season. I connected with Sebastian Sohn from Los Angeles through his collaboration on the emerging Dreams Unwrapped podcast, which I'll link in the show notes. Sebastian has taught game design as an adjunct and industry specialist at the LA Film School and the Rochester Institute of Technology. He focuses on using games to teach creative writing and coding and is currently developing a gamified curriculum to teach the basics of coding. Sebastian is also a video game designer, and I was thankful that he squeezed our interview into his busy week serving on the panel of judges for the Independent Game Festival for the Game Developers Conference. And as a bonus, I got to learn all about his top picks for indie video games this year. In addition to teaching, designing, gaming, and flowing in dream interpretation, he's also immersed in the world of crypto, DeFi, and NFT. It's never a dull moment in Sebastian's life, and I'm excited for you to hear from him today. I'll link him in the show notes so you can check out his work. Hey, Sebastian, thanks so much for joining me today.
Glad I'm here. All right.
Yeah, well, go ahead and start by telling us your history with dreams and dream interpretation. And then I'm excited to launch into some of your experience with, would you call it street ministry or prophetic evangelism through dream interpretation?
Yeah, I started with John Paul Jackson's training with Streams Ministries years ago. And I was really fascinated that there was someone who could do this. And I took his courses. And the interesting thing about that was I wasn't like an A student. When I took the course, I would say I was like a C student, maybe a D student. And just by sheer effort, I actually got better at it. I remember taking the course and there were a lot of naturals. And I was never a natural. And I only inspire people who want to do this, that sometimes C students who just keep grinding, they get there. So what I did was I went to different ministry opportunities, Sundance Film Festival, New Age Expos in Europe. I had also a training with Doug Addison. He came from a New Age background. He trained us on how to do street ministry, especially to the New Age. So I've done a lot of New Age and neo-pagan ministry, stuff like that. So I'm very comfortable talking to spiritual people who are not church, that go to church. So that's been my experience.
Yeah, that's really good. I love the encouragement. I would say I feel the same way. So have you been like a lifelong dreamer, or did that kind of activate more in your adult life?
I am not a big dreamer. The funny thing is I do get dreams, and a lot of them are correction dreams. I really appreciate that about God, how he doesn't want to have to correct me in real life. And he, does it in a dream where I make, life changes. But I was just fascinated by dreams in general. Maybe it's Asian culture. I think Asians generally value it higher.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
I think my breakthrough came in dream interpretation when you leave the logical from a Greek mindset to like a more metaphorical Jewish mindset. When you think in metaphors, if you read the Old Testament, people would have dreams and then they didn't call a prophet to interpret it. Like farmers, people who were just regular people would just interpret it. They didn't need anybody help because they had a Jewish mentality. They just understood it naturally. So I think having that Jewish mindset was the key. And that took several years to get there where I started thinking metaphorically. So I see dreams as metaphors, tall tales. It really helps a lot.
Right. I haven't done a correction dreams episode yet. I have one in queue, but that's one of my favorite categories of dreams too, because I've learned, like you're saying, how gracious it is of God to meet us in the privacy of our sleep rather than deal with things out in the open in our waking life. So do you want to talk a little bit more about what is a correction dream, what role these play in your life, and give us any examples?
Yeah, I remember early on in my ministry where I think God was telling me that I need to move forward. And I had a dream. I had my car parked in the dream, which is pitch black, and there was just a car there. The car was covered in parking tickets that were yellow, and the entire car was covered, so I can see the car. I could always see the shape of the car because the entire car was covered with parking tickets. Like, you haven't moved your car so long that it got ticketed so much that you can't even see the car, right?
That's so good.
So again, tall tales, right? Tall tales. Yeah. God saying, son, you got to move along. You can't stay here. It's time. Move forward. So I think that was early in my ministry where I said, okay, you know what? I got to do something about what I've learned. another encouragement or tip is that dream interpretation is hard for prophetic people because prophetic people want to rely on an anointing. I notice it's in training a lot. They have a hard time interpreting a dream if it's written, but if they have the person in front of them, they could do a good job because they'll use their prophetic gift, right? It's like dream interpretation is like half bookwork and half prophetic. There's some part that you have to ask God and deal with Holy Spirit, and the other part is you have to know the symbols and just there's some work you have to do in reading the parables, understanding, and again moving into metaphorical thinking, stuff like that. There's a combination, and people have a hard time because they wanted to just power through that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's really good. You were saying before I started recording how sometimes it's easier to interpret the dreams of people outside of the church or unbelievers versus inside the church. Do you want to talk about that?
Definitely. Okay, so I meet people like I've done this like at malls. I've done this in New Age festivals, and I meet a lot of people. And a lot of times the dreams are much easier, simpler. When you have a Christian dream, typically they have like Act 3, Scene 5, and there's like so many things you have to keep track of. Where's the character? Where now did the scene change? Like where are we at? That kind of stuff. Versus I'll give you a dream like I have multiple dreams like this where this I think I got this from a LA Burning Man event where this person said, I'm riding a bicycle up this hill and I'm trying really hard, pedaling hard, but I keep sliding down. And that was a dream, right? These are classic metaphors. If you're training in dream interpretation, I think it's actually better to do small dreams like this and get better at it to build your confidence. Then you get to the Christian, like multi-scene or multi-episode stuff like that, right? So this seems about how this person was trying to strive in their spirituality. And rather than relying on divine power, they were relying on their manpower where they're trying to actually pedal to spirituality and they couldn't make it because they need to rely on somebody. So I think I mentioned something like, you're trying to retain spirituality, but you're striving hard. And I appreciate your effort, but it seems like a more wiser approach might be to rely on divine power. You need more horsepower. And that comes from being connected with the creator. So is it okay if I lay hands on you right now? Bless you? We want to bless you on your journey, on your spiritual journey, in a non-religious way, right? To get to that. Because my goal has always been, I want to lay hands on people and impart hope because I think John Paul said that there's nothing that God can't do if they have hope. So I understand that when you're prophetic, you could read their mail and like that. You don't have to be a prophet to realize there's bad stuff going in their life, right? So I want to give them encouragement and say, hey, there is a maker. There's a plan for your life. And this plan is wonderful. Go on this hunt. Go on this adventure. Go on this journey. I want to encourage you to do this. And in fact, I want you to be bored when you're not doing this. I want you to go and have an adventure with God. Wherever you're at, we want to push you up. Because these people in these places are not going to come to church. And then the way I feel is like, let's say someone wants to buy a car, right? They don't just grab a wad of cash and run to a dealer and sign paperwork. What happens typically is they'll ask people, hey, I know you drive a Honda something, and did you like your car? You don't go to honda.com and look at the car, models. Maybe they'll go make a phone call to, or they'll see a print ad somewhere, right? So there's multiple teams that are working to present the car to the buyer, right? And at the end, the person has to go to the dealership and sign the paperwork, but that is like the last person in the chain of events that happen. So there's people on the web team who made the web page, Honda web page, and they're part of the team that actually helped to sign. So I'm part of the team that's out there where maybe I'm the first contact, right? And I say, you never heard of Jesus because, you think he's a hater. He doesn't hate you. He loves you. And this dream is about you and destiny. So we want to push you on a journey. So now that I push him up the ladder of spirituality from there's no God to there might be a God. He might like you. He might care about you to that. And then ultimately that person maybe see you at work, that somebody has a Bible on their desk and then starts a conversation and that person becomes a Christian. But I'm at the way bottom of the chain, right? Just trying to lift people up.
That's really good. That's a great analogy. So you said you've done the Sundance Film Festival, Burning Man. Have you also done the LA Film Festival?
I did the LA Film Market. That was an interesting one because LA Film Market, we didn't understand what it was. LA Film Market is a trade show where there are people who make content. So they'll make indie movies or they make TV series and they'll come and they'll sell it. And people from overseas, I remember I met a gentleman, he's a Spaniard from a Spanish network in Spain. He wanted to buy some TV series. So they're not creative people. They're not filmmakers. They're more like just business people. So when I went there, and this was a good training for me, I went there thinking there's going to be like new age kind of environment, lots of creative people. And then no, it's all business people. So I was like, wow, okay, let me adjust how I do this. So like the first group I met, I think I asked questions and say, so what are you guys doing here? And then I found out I asked questions. What do you do? How do you do things? Red Camp was a popular thing back then. And they said how wonderful it is. And I said, oh, interesting. Red Camp, that's important. And then they say they went to Santa Fe and how filming in Santa Fe is so fantastic because all you have to do is just grab your receipts and just turn it in, like an envelope, and they'll do all the taxes for you, because a lot of filming doesn't happen in LA because LA has so much bureaucracy. There's not much filming happening in LA because it's just too complicated. So people go elsewhere, and Santa Fe was a place that they're recommending. Then I went to the next group and I said, hey, have you heard of the Red Cam? Are you guys using it? And then, oh yeah, then it starts a conversation. Then I say, no, I heard like Santa Fe, all you have to turn receipt. Oh yeah, it's great. We filmed there, and by the end of the day, I knew a whole bunch of stuff about filmmaking, and because I would ask questions and it kind of feed it back.
Yeah.
And then of course I was sneaking, do you have any dreams? I'm here to interpret dreams, stuff like that. So I think wherever you go, if you listen and ask questions, and then you can do this.
Based on our conversation, you've said that's something you've grown in, is packaging dream interpretation and your dialogue with people differently based on the setting. So can you explain some of your experiences in Burning Man or the film festivals and then the LA film market? What does that look like? Do you go out in teams? Do you have a booth? And then how does that look different based on the different settings?
We've done a lot of things where we've done street stuff, obviously. Like LA Film Market, we had a room, I think, because we were tied to a Christian filmmaker, but the room was for business people and there was not a lot of traffic. So we hit the lobby. We had booths before, like LA Burning Man. We have a theme camp. We're called the Divine Messengers, and we pray for people, stuff like that. This is from Doug Addison, where I asked them, what does your spiritual journey look like? Do you meditate? Are you Jewish? What do you do? Then if they tell me, I used to go to Sunday school, but I really find peace in Buddhism. It's beautiful. Then, okay, so, he has some background in church, but maybe doesn't like it, but he has a grid for spirituality. Or they might say, no, I don't really believe in religion, then low level. So I try to gauge how much Jesus I can talk about, depending on how spiritual they are.
That's
and
really
how safe they feel about church, right? Did they have a bad experience, that kind of stuff. So what I noticed recently is that there's a lot of openness now for the gospel, for the younger generation. I'm talking about junior high and high school right now. There seems like there's a lot of opening where you can freely talk about Jesus, but something has changed. The people I deal with most is like New Age, and you just use words that are spiritual, right? So depending on the context, again, I like to call God Father of Lights or Creator God or even Great Spirit, however New Age they are, right?
I found the Creator language, people to be really receptive to it.
Yeah. And also I say that I'm part of a spiritual community, right? AAK church, right? I even use, I think, Jesus is my spirit guide, as like a really New Age thing, right? So yeah, I've used a lot of the things like that. Again, remember my goal is just to interpret dream and find an opening to lay hands and give them hope, and Holy Spirit, put them on the journey, right, to spirituality. If you're really interested into ministering to secular crowd and stuff like that, I think one of the easiest things you can do is start reading the Bible in like a modern interpretation, right?
Like the Message or the Passion.
Yeah, there you go. Message is good, yeah. I think there's like a verse where it says Jesus became flesh and moved into the neighborhood or something like that. It's so street that it's hilarious, right? I think that's probably a start. And then also find all the different names in the Bible for God, right? Like Father of Lights is what God is called. Lion of Judah is another. There's so many names for God, right? So practice those names. And when you pray, start praying like that. Pray to, Father of Lights. And then also practice saying this out loud. Also learn to pray with your eyes open. So if it's a conversation, you can say, I want to bless your journey right now. I see that, this dream was about you and how you're trying to really strive on your own strength, but there's a higher power. And the Creator, wants to give you a better vehicle than a bicycle. There is a better way. And so I'm doing this, my eyes open. I'm praying for this person, right? Without looking like a prayer. So that's what I do.
Do you ever have people, if you mention Jesus, instantly back up or shut down?
Oh yeah. Sometimes I make mistakes where I did push a little too much, and what I did at least was prophetic, right? If you mess up on that stuff, just say, I want to pray for you. I want to give you a spiritual blessing, and then give them what you can, right?
I love the idea of using the different names of God just based on what the dreamer is encountering in their dreams, and then how to make that connection with the nature of God.
That's great. And you go places where the Christians aren't, especially, even better.
I've had multiple people when I'm out, doing street ministry come with recurring dreams. Is that common for you?
Yeah, actually, that's a pretty common one. The way analogy I would give on recurring dreams is it's like a snooze button on an alarm. So what would happen is the alarm would ring, and rather than waking up, you hit the snooze button and you go to sleep for 10 more minutes. And 10 minutes later, it rings again, you hit the snooze button again. So in dream-wise, it could be warning dreams, typically. Like let's say it was me where I had a dream about parking parked car, and then I didn't do anything. And then 3 months later, I now have a dream about another parked car, a different place, and it's same theme. It's another parked car, and then I have another dream where a car's being towed. It's been so long that it's been towed somewhere. Right? It's like, wait a minute, what's happening is I got a dream from God. God says, make some changes in your life, and I refused. Then 3 months later, the dream came again. So the way you break out of that is you make a change in your life. So I tell them, I think this dream means this, like my dream. It seems like your faith journey or your spirituality or maybe even project you're working on is stuck. And I think you need to move forward, maybe take more risks or manage something. And how about this? When you meditate next time, like try to figure out if there's something that you're not moving forward, that you know you should be moving forward, and move that forward. See what happens. If that happens, then your dream should stop. And if it didn't stop, then it's something else. So until you find that, it's going to keep recurring.
What language do you use when you're encouraging people that a dream is an invitation to seek God for resolution or healing or whatever the dream is pointing towards? Do you just say, seek God about that or pray about that, or do you say something else?
Again, it depends on when I ask how spiritual they are. The funny thing is sometimes I meet Christians too, right? So that I can speak freely. I remember I met a youth pastor and he was in the crossroads. I met him on the last day he was in California and he was going back somewhere. And then it was a call to ministry again. And we spoke in most religious language possible. But depends on what level it is. If they're spiritual, I would say something like you're doing great on your spiritual journey. This dreamer had a dream where he was at a school locker and the locker was locked with a master lock combo lock with the numbers on it, and then that was a dream. So when you have a dream about education, typically means that you're spiritual learning, you're trying to increase your spiritual learning, and the fact that it's lockers means that probably it's not elementary or kindergarten. So this person is either middle school or high school, so they're at least more spiritual, right? And then they're trying to get to the books that you need, but they can't because there's a master lock combo, right? So I said, it seems like you're on a spiritual journey and you want to go higher learning, but your resources are locked behind a master. It's not what you know, it's who you know. So it seems like your next level of knowledge is going to come from the master. If they're really new age, I'll say that maybe your creator, that kind of stuff. Maybe ask the Holy Spirit, Jesus is the way kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And
that's really good. I've had several dreams. I mean, keys, locks, that's a really typical dream element. I have had dreams about having a locker and I couldn't remember the code, or the code changed, or it kept changing. What do you think that represents?
If you're saying that the code changed, so that means that you're out of the loop. It's something you should know because it's your locker, or you might want to search and find out why you don't have it. So what are you lacking? Maybe it's poor planning or not paying attention. So your learning is good, but then there's some outside stuff like paying attention or maybe listening to God's voice, stuff like that.
Yeah. I remember in one dream, it's like I knew the combination so well, but it had been so long since I had been to school to my locker, I had forgotten. What do you think that means?
That means you need to brush up on your old skills. You're
Okay.
getting rusty. So it's about maintaining, your skill set, right? Practicing, doing stuff consistently.
Right. Okay. And then what about keys? There's so many different contexts with keys. I know that's a common one for people. So can you talk about that one?
Keys would open something. It could be literally something simple as a diary to, I guess, a safe lock, whatever. It depends on what the value of what's behind it, right? Is it something like money? Remember, dreams are not literal. So when you typically have money, it probably means favor. It could be knowledge. It could be a lot of different things. So giving keys usually means that you're going to be access to something that you haven't had before. It's like a reward. It's a promotion.
That's really good. And then one of the most common ones I get in street ministry is vehicle dreams, all different kinds. Like you mentioned a bicycle dream. I mean, motorcycle dreams, car dreams. I just had someone tell me a dream where they were in the back seat of a car. No one was driving and they could see through the windshield, like what needed to happen, but no one was at the wheel. So they were trying to grasp control of the vehicle from the back seat. So how do you generally interpret vehicle dreams? And then feel free to share any specific examples that come to mind.
Yeah, vehicle dreams, usually it's about their career or their spirituality, some kind of ministry or something like that. Normal driving would be you're in the driver's seat, right? So in this case where someone is in the back seat, that's wrong. They should be in the front seat. So either by choice or by how they're forced, there's something in the back seat. So something's broken. They have something has changed for them to be in the driver's seat. And maybe this is a dream, a reflective dream where they're saying, this was your ministry, but you're back abandoned it. So you're trying to, drive this thing in the back seat. So that could be a warning or something. Or it could be maybe they have to change your life. You know what? Stop being a backseat driver. You need to now go to your own ministry or own project. So it could be several things. It's important to know like what kind of vehicle. If they have dreams of unicycles or bicycle, then okay, maybe it's not they're not that spiritual or they're not at the level they need to go further, right? And again, remember that you want horsepower, whether it's a boat, airplane, whatever. You want something that you don't have to pedal or to power by yourself because you want to be powered by God, divine power. Let's say there's a pickup truck, right? So pickup truck, what details? Like does a truck bug have like a camping gear on the back or it's just a flatbed? So if you just have flatbed, that would mean that you can carry a lot of cargo, but it only has seats for, unless it's an extended cab, probably it only has like 2 or 3 people as a passenger.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to be a ministry where you're going to be carrying lots of people, but maybe you bring provisions. Versus, let's say a van, that's like a closed van, that's multi-purpose. You can put people, you can put cargo. If you have a lot of windows, then it's going to be like a bus, right? And then like, I remember John Paul had a dream where he said that he was flying a jumbo jet. So yeah, so he's a pilot of a bigger ministry that's flying high, right? Depends on the vehicle. And like the dreams I would have is like, I have usually a sports car, something small that's fast, but it can't carry a lot of people. So your ministry will reflect on what you're doing. And obviously you could change the vehicle type that happens.
I've had a lot of dreams through the years of driving a semi truck that's empty. I recently had a dream where I was pulling a trailer that was empty. I think that has something to do with I have the capacity for something, but I'm not in the season yet where it's filled with what I'm supposed to be carrying. What do you interpret that as?
You're talking about cargo trucks, right? The one with the it's containers in the back. So in the US, most things are shipped on trucks. Trucks are expensive. So if you have an empty container, that means that it's underutilized, right? You have great capacity, way more than a sports car or a bicycle, right? Like you can probably put multiple bicycles and cars in the back, right? So you can carry other ministries, in fact, right? But it's empty. So in commerce is that you have to get orders. It might mean that you have capacity, but you need to find some order takers, order makers, or something like that, right? You need the sales team to find something for you.
Yeah, strategic partnerships or ministry partnerships. Yeah, that's good.
It does say a lot about you. It's just that there's a huge capacity, right? That's underutilized, and it's like we have to be as Christians. God gives us stuff, and we have to use it. We all have a responsibility.
Interestingly, in the most recent dream, in the passenger seat of the truck I was driving was one of my friends, and so we pulled up to this university with this truck and trailer. So I think that has something to do with we've got the capacity. We're in preparation. There's a partnership identified. So maybe we're in the season right now where what is supposed to go in the trailer, we're in the process of getting.
So maybe you have another dream soon, right? You got to find some buyer to put something in there. So maybe it has something to do with learning, spirituality, which I guess this podcast is about that. Maybe I pray that it goes big and carry the message.
Yeah. You know how spiritually or prophetically, I guess, you kind of live with your eyes open, searching for different things that God has shown you in the past because you have these connection points. Like, oh, I just met a person from China and I've been dreaming about China. It's kind of an intriguing way to live.
Yeah. I think we just touched on something here. When you do dreams, your dream dictionaries is not infinite. So you're going to find new things. So we just talked about this big haul truck, right? So I remember during COVID, what happened was there was like a jam because they didn't have enough trucks to deliver goods from LA Harbor, something like that, Long Beach. There wasn't enough trucks. So another thing we realized, okay, there are trucks that deliver to ships and vice versa. They unload and load ships. So this truck also does fit the international thing where, you have the capacity to drop something that could be shipped overseas.
Oh, wow.
Right? Yeah. So this is what we do. We look at the vehicle, look at whatever context. Okay. So, and what does this do? What does this do compared to a bicycle, compared to a sports car, a big truck? It has a lot of capacity, but at the same time, it costs a lot to maintain. So the cargo has to be precious. There's all sorts of stuff, right? So this is what we do. We try to analyze what it is and try to fit that into the dream.
Yeah, that's really good. When you think prophetically or symbolically or spiritually, there's like multiple connections, multiple things going on at once. And like you were saying in the beginning of our interview about thinking Hebraically instead of in a Greek or modern mindset, the connectedness of everything, that's a way of thinking. I find myself always as I'm growing in dream interpretation, just stretching myself to think more outside of the box, less linear, less compartmentalized, let those connections spark and see what happens.
I want to mention something, practicing dreams, right? And street stuff. There's also a game you can find on Steam, if you guys play PC games, called Kind Words and Kind Words 2. It's a game where people write, like Dear Abby Collin, like, oh, I just broke up with my boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever, and I'm really depressed. You write a little note and you send it. Then you can encourage them. This is a way you can actually practice prophetic to people, again, in non-religious language. Because it's hard to get practice. This is a way to get infinite amount of practice, basically. There's so many requests, right? To practice non-religious language. Once you get good at that, you can also do it on Twitter. I remember I encourage people on Twitter. Also, I pick up dreams from my friend list on Facebook. Lots of people post dreams, Christians, non-Christians. So I use that for training. I take some of them and stuff like that. It's very rewarding. It's like heartwarming stuff, and there's people who are just struggling. It's really good.
Okay, that's so cool. So what about some of your live interpretation ministry? Do you have any experiences to share from that?
I think from LA Burning Man, there's like a local Burning Man and there's regional where multiple locals join. Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
I was part of the LA Burning Man, which we did the most of.
Okay.
And then there's a regional Burning Man. I think they were a combination of LA and Vegas, and it's like 3 or 4 got together.
Is it like an after party? So after everyone goes to Burning Man, then they come back and do the regional?
Yeah. So depends on how active or where you live, right? But LA and San Francisco, they're big hubs, so there's always something like that. And San Diego has one. So they would band together and do a regional one. And the regional ones are probably the best, where they're like Burning Man, but it's smaller. Because Burning Man is like a city, right? So there's so many things happening. It's like going to a mall for the first time in your life, and you try to visit every single store. You're spending 5 minutes per store. So the same concept. There's so many places in Burning Man that people just stop by and say hello and then just take off. And it's hard to build relationships because they might be international, something like that, versus regional and local. You talk to people and you can get connected on Facebook or whatever social media you use. You can stay in touch with them, and you can actually talk to them. And on these local ones, you can talk to them for like hours. They come over, they talk to you, break bread together, stuff like that.
So would you say at the local ones, are there hundreds of people, thousands of people?
Yeah, so local one, about 100, let's say, right?
Burning Man itself, I think it's like in the hundreds of thousands. Is that right?
It's a city. I mean, they built a city out of nowhere. And so it's like you move to a new town, new city, and you try to visit everybody. It's impossible. Okay. Versus if you go to regional or local, you can visit every single booth or whatever. You can talk to everybody.
Okay.
And you can have a conversation with them, not just, so I would encourage people who want to do this kind of stuff. If you want to do ministry like this, go find a local chapter and then sign up as a Dream Interp group and stuff like that. And then probably the first thing you should do is probably the first time, just go to the event as a guest and see how it is, see what they do, and then figure it out, and then maybe start a booth there. Well, local especially is really safe. Not that you can or you should, but you can bring children if you want to. Not that you should, but I'm saying it's safe enough that there's no drugs, no sex, there's nothing crazy like that.
Everyone is clothed.
Yeah, everyone's clothes on. There's nothing, and it's more like a carnival than anything else.
Yeah, I'm sure they've got those here in Colorado.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. There's anywhere there's a large city, right? There's some kind of meetup or something that happens. Oh yeah, let me just go through a real quick process. This is what we do. So we have a table typically, or whatever. We have a booth, and then someone sits down, right? I ask them, oh, so welcome to the team, and then I say, what is your name? And could you tell me your spiritual background? Are you Jewish? Do you meditate? Then I have to figure out how much Jesus I could talk about. Then they give me a dream. Then I repeat the dream back to them. Make sure that I heard it right. And also I make sure that my team gets some extra time to digest the dream, right? I'm stalling in a sense, right? And then I say, oh, one moment. And then we confer, whatever, we interpret the dream, right? And then once they interpret the dream, I somehow find a way to, is it okay if I lay hands on you right now? I want to bless you on your journey. Keep my eyes open and do a prayer. Then I say, oh, Tom, would you like to add to that? Annie, would you like to add to that? And then they chime in with prophetic stuff, right? And then if we do have someone also, we would then pass on to prophetic team, because if we get a good dream and we do it right, they're crying, okay, let's bring them to the prophetic tent, and then they can handle them. Because what I want to do is I want high volume traffic, right? So I don't want them to sit here and talk to us because they want to, because they just had a great experience, right? But I can't afford that. I got to talk to the next customer. I think a lot of people forget that, and they'll get stuck with some guy, and then they'll be talking for like an hour, and then they'll wonder how come we can't get any dreams. So, because that seat's not open.
So how many people do you typically have on your team dream at
Oh,
any given time?
that's a great question because I
Okay.
feel like 3 is perfect, 4 is pushing it. Even at 4, I feel like you lose the intimacy. It makes it feel like it's like us versus them. It feels like you're being interrogated. I don't know. It just seems like 3 is the best, I would say,
Okay.
because you lead, and then whoever's in charge, you lead, and you take turns, whatever. And then it's
So
3.
most of the time, are you at a booth and people are coming to you, or are you walking around approaching people?
I prefer the booth if you
Okay.
can. Like we have a booth. Like right now, we do practice at San Pedro, city in California. San Pedro, there's like an art walk. We have a table out. We have 3 people there, so we practice that right now. That's the best. You can approach people, but that takes more skill because you have to be more outgoing, right? I've done both, and for most people, it's more comfortable to have a booth if you can.
Okay. And then after you interpret the dream, ask if you can pray or bless them, do
Mhm.
you give a phone number if they want to follow up with you or anyone on your ministry team? Or do you lead them to a church or anything else, or just release them and trust the process that God is doing in their life?
Depends on how good of a connection it is. Some connections, yeah, we I just give social media. If not, then we just send them out and say thank you for the dream. And depends on how impactful we were, right? If we
Okay.
really we were always trying to figure out how do we get to the next step, and I've never figured this out. Where how do you get someone who's new age, right, and they get converted, right? We can't take them to church because church is too much for them. There has to be like a home church somewhere that can cater to people who get to the church at some point, right? So and
Right.
I figured it out.
I've
It's
had
all.
so many people here that I encounter in street ministry and they say, "Oh, I don't fit at church." So I have a friend who has a home church and I'm actually going to get with him and maybe consider getting some cards printed so that I
Mhm.
can just point them to what he's doing because I want the follow up. And even I have cards that I hand to people pointing them to the podcast. It has a contact button. Just, I'm kind of with you. Like, I want to actually see it through. Or, I mean,
Mhm.
we can't make that happen. We can only make ourselves available. But I think maybe you're right. They're not ready to just walk into a big church where it seems like everyone has it all together, which we don't.
Mhm.
It's not true, but the perception of someone from the outside coming in can just be like a room full of beautiful, shining people, and I don't fit here, right?
Yeah, I would point to like Billy Graham, where he has crusades, right? Where he used to have crusades where he would preach, and then I know you work with local churches, but not everybody gets churched, right? So I
Right.
don't know. Is it his responsibility to make sure everyone's churched? So same concept. I have one piece of the puzzle, which is get people who are low spirituality, haters of God, or something like that, and I try to bring them up, and that's
Right.
what I do. So do I have to have all the pieces up the ladder? Well, maybe not, right?
Right. That's
Yeah.
really good. Are you working on the podcast with Faith?
Hmm.
Okay, so maybe you guys want to consider what I've done, just the little cards with the QR code. I feel like even if they don't reach back out to me, if they will at least listen to the podcast, they
Oh,
will
good.
hear the word, they will
Yeah.
hear the gospel in some episodes.
Yeah.
And so that could be a connection point, even if you don't know that it's happening, you're leaving them with something, some way to explore further if they're inclined to.
I think if you do a good dream, they'll reach out to you again if they have another dream, and that happens too once in a while. They say,
Yeah,
"Oh,
for
can you talk
sure.
about this?"
I love the people I run into, and you go so deep so fast. It feels like you know each other. And so, I
Mhm.
mean, just personally, it's my personality. I love people, but I want to hear back from them. I do have some people reach out again and again with different dreams they've had, but some of the real special encounters, I actually have a desire that they would get back in touch with me because I care about them and I'd love to hear from them. So we'll see. We've just been doing a lot of this through the summer and then just recently an occult festival here not far away. And I've passed out a lot of cards, so I'll
Mhm.
give it time.
Yeah, yeah. I think also you build a reputation. You also get better. So maybe things just change as you get better at stuff.
Yeah, I feel like even through the summer, I've gotten a lot better just on the fly in
Hmm.
public, disciplining myself to pay attention to the main focus of the
Yeah,
dream,
yeah, yeah,
not
yeah. Right.
getting stuck in the details. And like you were saying, I feel like a lot of dreams people people share are simpler versus believers.
Yeah, I would say, at least, I guess, in our circles, our friends are revelation machines, right? So they keep hearing God and stuff like that. So they're going to have really complicated dreams. And then there's going to be people who like, this is like the Jedi, the Sith kind of thing where like you're called to be, let's say, a prophet or a pastor, and then they go rogue. I remember at a regional Burning Man, I met this guy. He was total pastor, right? Basically, he had a bus and he full of people. He drug people around, and that was his ministry. And what happened was he went rogue and he went to Mexico to train under some guru and just get weird. And his dreams were so bizarre where he really had long dreams and it was about death. I was struggling so hard to make it positive, but it was all about spiritual death. He had like a harem of ladies. So bizarre. It was like, but the thing is, he kept his gift and he was spiritual. He had a spiritual community that he ran, and he was teaching them stuff, but he was on the wrong team. So those people like that would have really long dreams because they still have the gift and they're working. In fact, they're working on gift, just again on the wrong team, right?
Right. So what do you do if you encounter someone that you sense they need deliverance or their dream is like definitely speaking to you of some darker things? How do you handle that?
Ooh, I feel like generally spiritual deliverance in a sense is overrated or overpushed in the sense that if you have rats in your house, if you throw the trash away, the rats have nothing to eat, then your house is clean, right?
That's good.
But I think what Christians do is like they want to chase the rats, and they go out there and bang us, and they make all it's like, okay, but the trash is still there, okay? And the thing is, I don't want to do like if I'm out on the field or something like that, do like deliverance because all I'm doing is make loud noises and then chasing these rats out. But as soon as this person goes back home, they haven't changed a thing, right? What if they're like, they're into drugs and they're living in a drug den, right? That's their home, right? Well, just because I interpret dream and I, cast demon out today, that doesn't mean that they're going to change that, right? I have to do some follow-up. And unless I can do that, I don't want to do that kind of stuff, right? So then I would just pray for them again, right? And then ask God to show them the light and like freedom, what it's about. And, there's a better way kind of stuff, right? So, because some Christians like love doing that kind of stuff. And I feel like it makes them look good because if you like cast demons, and then you guys so good because you can like change that man's life in an instant, right? Again, you only did it for an instant. You didn't change his life because that person can go back home and they haven't changed their life.
Right. That's really good. So you would never approach that situation by ministering an actual deliverance right there. But how would you communicate to that person something they could take to God? Because it's sensitive. I know sometimes people share dreams, and as I'm listening, I'm like, oh, I can see really clearly what this is pointing to. And sometimes it's more vulnerable than they realize as they're sharing. And so then my response has to be really prayerful. I want to honor them. You don't want to just come out with an interpretation that makes them feel jarred or uncovered. So say you perceive there's some demonic underlayers to what's going on in their dream. How would you encourage them to engage with what the dream is revealing?
I'll say something like, there seems to be some darkness in your life. It seems like the dream is pointing that there's some darkness in your life, and what you focus on will grow. And this doesn't have to be the way. There is a different way. Well, I think what I would do is I would like to work with people who do sozo or some kind of inner healing because they can unpack this better and they have more time. So I will pray for them, lay hands again, and give them encouragement, and maybe write their names down and put them on a prayer list. Get sure that they get something. If they want to contact whatever, that'll be good. And then refer to them to like a sozo group because I used to do sozo stuff for the group, and I remember. And what I was good about was I brought non-Christians in. God can talk to them too. It's not just about inner healing. It doesn't have to be for Christians. So if you have an open sozo group, something like that can do this kind of be a good partnership. In a private setting, that kind of stuff would be much, much better rather than trying to do this on the street where it can be embarrassing, right?
Right.
I would just say, give them hope. John Paul says, if they have hope, that God could do anything. Make sure they have hope. You leave them with hope that there is something better.
Yeah, that's really good. So is there any encouragement you would give to listeners about their own dream lives, growth in the skill of interpretation, and using this as a tool for evangelism?
Yeah. So we need to practice. Like I said, I feel like I was a C student, maybe even D student. I wasn't good at this kind of stuff. Even prophetic ministry, I wasn't good at it, but I kept doing it. I went to events with streams. I was terrible at it. But if you do it enough, you get better at it. It's like if you do 100 dreams, like a little birthday candle turns on. And then if you do 1,000, maybe a light bulb comes on. The light gets brighter as you do this, and you have to keep doing it. Another way is to get dreams from your coworkers or just friends who are not Christian. Search on social media or ask people, get practice like that. Keep doing it. And work on having the Jewish mindset. Think things in a metaphorical way. So like the elements we went over, let's say in a dream, I see a giraffe. So you say, what is a giraffe? Well, a giraffe has 4 legs, very tall. Giraffes are very strong. They can actually kick a lion to death. They're so strong, they can kick a lion in any direction. So lions don't mess with them unless they're in a pack. So you say, okay, a giraffe is very very strong. Giraffe could see very far. So if someone has a dream, okay, well, giraffes allow you to also eat from a tall branch. You don't have to rely on the food on the ground because they're so tall, they can get to leaves or fruits, whatever they eat, they can reach that. So then you kind of apply that to their life. So whenever you see an object or vehicle, whatever it is, try to see what is the function, how that will work, because your dream dictionary will expand naturally because you can't make a list. No one could teach you all the nuance, everything. So you have to figure that out. And that is a skill, being able to interpret dreams as tall tales.
I love hearing your experiences of being out and about and taking this to the streets and reaching the dreaming world and just planting seeds. And I know I have that same encouragement in my own ministry. Wherever the interaction ended, it's a seed planted. If people felt seen, heard, loved. I look forward to seeing more of what you're doing with faith and things like that in the future.
Yeah.
It's always so fun engaging with other dreamers, and I hope you were as inspired as I was hearing from Sebastian today. I know you'll also enjoy my next interview, currently in production, with Chris Anders, which really took me by surprise in the best way. Thanks so much to everyone who has contributed dreams for the podcast, whether I've gotten a chance to work them into episodes yet or not. This is a collaboration and could not exist without you. If you have dreams to contribute or that you need help interpreting, please reach out to me using the contact button on my website at www.thenightlife-podcast.com. Also, let me know if you have comments or recommendations for future episodes. I hope this Christmas finds you drawing near to God in new ways and dreaming more brilliantly than ever as we're heading into the new year. Thanks so much for listening.